One of the beauties of being based here at Mount Falcon is that you're not too far away from some fantastic lochs. You've got 44,000 acres of Loch Corrib, the biggest loch in Ireland. And then close to that you've got Loch Mask, which is 22,000 acres. Now they're both within an hour's drive of this location. But even closer, 10 minutes away, is 14,000 acres of Loch Con. Now that is a fantastic loch as well. And not only are there loads of brown trout in Loch Con, but you've also got a real chance for salmon. This area is probably best known, especially around Ballina, for the River Moy, and it's a very, very productive salmon river. A lot of serious salmon anglers come over here. Sometimes though, when the river's out of sorts and when the lochs are too windy to go on, or it's pouring with rain like it has done at times today, it's great to have a small lake like this, which is absolutely crammed with fantastic quality rainbow trout. And there's just a few olives starting to hatch now, so I'm going to have a go, see if I can get the odd decent rainbow on an olive. Oh yes, what a lovely take that was. How can you ever get bored with catching fish on dry flies? It's absolutely fantastic.
What I would do is I'd start really with a shortish line, yeah, so we cover the gully and then lengthen out a little bit. And if you notice, I've got this rocking habit, which just is, you know, it's not the fastest river in the world, so it's just putting a bit of extra pace into the fly, making it pole shape really.
Right. And what we like about this, because you're the fishery manager for the Mount Falcon Estate, and it's so central for so many different types of fishing around here.
Yeah, we're very fortunate really. We have we have the most prolific salmon river in Ireland in this, the River Moy. We have our own stretch, this 2 miles. Also then in this, within an hour of here, there are half a dozen other great salmon rivers, some smaller spate rivers, but also we have the loch trout fishing that you guys have been doing, which is quite unique really. That totally wild brown trout limestone lochs is quite a unique thing.
Absolutely, very different than we've got back home, and but it's really the salmon that drives you, isn't it?
Here for us, probably 90% currently of my current business would be very much salmon, yeah. But the guys will quite often, they'll do a day trout fishing on the lochs, they might do a day sea trout fishing.
Russell's caught a salmon on Loch Con.
Yeah, he did well, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Amazing,
his first ever salmon.
Yeah.
And then today he's managed to top that all off with salmon out of your river.
Yeah, I mean the great thing for guys that have done, we get a lot of guys that haven't caught a salmon and will catch their first salmon in a trip to us. And in fact, if they've done a bit of trout fishing, they can use a single-handed fly rod. There's a good few venues they can fish on. They can use very similar tactics. Certainly the loch salmon fishing is identical to your loch trout fishing, just slightly different flies and a slightly stronger leader maybe.
Yeah.
But really, that gives them a great chance of getting their first salmon.
I'll hang around here for a bit. Well done, Russ. Should we get him back in?
Right, well Russell, the fish he caught was about 10 pounds I would say, and he had that earlier today and he released it. He didn't want to take it.
Oh, lovely.
So many people don't want to actually take it for the pot anymore, and it is great to see him go back.
Yeah, yeah.
But you're making this look extremely easy,
well,
because when you're good at it, that's what it is.
Well, I don't.
It looks good.
I've never been a great caster, but it's just developing a technique that's effective, and that's all people need to do, really. It's lovely to be able to cast beautifully and prettily, but really, as long as guys can cast effectively, that's the most important thing, really.
And I agree with you. The ultimate is catching the salmon on the fly, isn't it? You don't just run the fishing operation, do you? There's other parts to your job as well here.
Yeah, well, I would get involved with the angler from the very beginning. What we try and do is we try and plan the trip around what they want. So, you know, what their previous experience is, whether they're looking for trout, whether they're looking for a mixture of you know, trout fishing, sea trout fishing and salmon fishing. And then I'll plan all that, put a package together, sort of bespoke package for them. And then I'll look after them to a great extent when they arrive as well. So how did you enjoy the trout fishing? You were out on Loch Con and Mask, I believe.
Yeah, 2 days ago now we were on Con.
Right.
And that was good. Lots of 2-year-old fish and windy conditions. Mind, we had to fish certain parts of the loch because it was so windy. And the problem is because it's fairly cold still. The olives aren't really.
Yeah, today's warmer, but you didn't have the best conditions, did you?
No, we didn't. But we all caught. You know, so we all caught fish, and it was great. And it's traditional loch style fishing, which we don't tend to do that much back home now. And we raised quite a few fish as well, so that was good.
Very good.
And then lo and behold, Russell goes and gets salmon as well. So that was a real bonus for us. And
yeah, I mean there's a lot of salmon. You know that the Moy is connected, obviously, to Loch Cullen, which runs into Con.
Yeah.
And a lot of the salmon, particularly this time of year, will go straight up the Moy system and into the lakes.
But there is one other place you've got here as well, which is actually in the estate. That's your Rainbow Lake.
Yeah, the Rainbow Lake, which is very good quality fish.
Certainly fighting this clear water.
You know, we overwinter them. They're very full-tailed, and the last few days there've been some nice hatches of olive.
Yeah,
I think you guys have enjoyed that.
It was fantastic.
Oh, lovely.
Both Russell and Phil caught loads of fish on little small buzzer nymphs, and I fished it yesterday with drives.
Yeah.
And wow, the fishing was absolutely electric.
It is very good quality, and nobody really comes over here to fish for the rainbows, but it's a great thing to have, because a lot of my guys would, you know, fish during the day for salmon.
Yeah.
They'd go and they'd have something to eat in the hotel or the bar, have a few drinks, and then, you know, if they're staying in the lodges, they'd probably have an hour or two on the trout lake.
Yeah.
Just, you know, for a bit of fun.
I spend my life on Chew Valley and Blagdon Lakes guiding people, so I see fish and trout every single day.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, I was really impressed with the quality of the rainbows you had in there.
Yeah.
I was impressed with the setting. I was very impressed by the insect hatches as well, and the clarity of the water. I think, you know, it's a little bit better to me than just somewhere to spend an hour. You know, a lot of really good trout anglers would enjoy that.
We've got a lake that you can fish here, clear water, very rich water, lots of insect life, lots of activity. Fish are feeding quite naturally, but inevitably a lot of tourists come and they catch a few fish, and the fish can start to go a little bit off, and they can start to get a little bit clever. So you tend to get more imitative patterns and things, and that can work, and it tends to be the easiest way of fishing. Today we've been fishing 6-pound fluorocarbon floating line, standard sort of tactics really. I've got a 9'6" rod and 7-weight line, I say, but we've been using buzzers. Such a rich water, lots of nymph activity, lots of stuff like that. So we've got 2 buzzers on an 8-foot cast, black buzzer and a green buzzer a little bit further, about 18 inches above that, and then an indicator about a foot above that. So we've got 2 levels of flies. Cast it out and then just let it drift around with the wind, and the fish will come and have a look, and more often than not they'll take it. Because the water's so clear, if you see fish coming in around and coming close to your flies, it's often a case that you can induce the take, just giving it a little bit of a twitch, lifts the flies up in the water column, grabs the trout's attention, and he'll take. So it's just induce the take, sometimes be a little added bonus. Good sized fish, ooh, nice looking fish as well. Certainly fighting this clear water. A nice big tail on it as well. Beautiful quality fish. Always the tricky bit, getting out of the net properly. Those are in the top of the mouth. Oh. Nice quality rainbow. Yeah. Oh. I have to say they're fantastic fighting fish. Oh. In such clear water, being able to see them coming around is fantastic.
Talk us through the sort of tackle you use from this time of year for springers
Right.
throughout the season, Steve.
Okay. Well, typically, John, we'll use rods sort of 14, 15 foot this time of year, and then scaling down a little bit in July and August, 12 and a half, 13 foot typically, 8, 9 weight floating lines. But then we'll use a range of the poly leaders, you know.
Yep.
So from extra fast sink to sort of slow sink through there. Springtime, which we're in now, we'd look at tubes, smallish tubes. So that's a park shrimp tube, very mobile in the water, plenty of movement, and gets down a little bit.
Predominantly orange as well, is that a top colour here?
Certainly early season and the fish for the first couple of months of the growth run, then orangey is a very good colour for fresh fish, really.
Right.
And then when we move on a bit, we'll get a little bit smaller in some of the flies. So some of the more traditional shrimp flies would be something like that there, which is orange and gold shrimp. And that's, you know, it's not very soft hackled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So movement.
Yeah, it's again movement, the pulsation, particularly when I was rocking the rod, as you saw, then that will tend to pulsate in the water.
And you scale it down in the summer because you haven't got the flow or the depth, presumably?
Yeah, but also the fish then will look for slightly smaller flies. You
Right.
know, when she goes a bit cleaner later on, you can do well. Typically, we will also, if this was July, we'd probably use 2 flies. So
Right.
if you're fairly confident, we'd use a dropper. So you'd have something like an orange and gold shrimp on the point, and maybe something like a yellow shrimp like that on the dropper.
How far apart?
You'll about 4 foot, something like that, between them, and then the droppers, you know, 4 to 6 inch dropper, fairly typical dropper through there. But the other flies then late on, so if we're talking end of August, September, you tend to use the more purpley, you know, a little bit more purple in them. That one's a McCormick's, but the very popular local one here is what's known as a Fohans. There's a River Fohan in Northern Ireland.
I'm glad you said that.
Shrimp, yeah, and that's a very effective fly August onwards.
Yes. What a take. When these olives come off like this. Quite amazing fishing. Well, that is a beautiful fish. Long fish. Very long. Big tail. Look at that. A Mount Falcon Estate rainbow. When I'm going to release fish like this, what I tend to do is get the fish, put it back in the landing net once I've taken the hook out, leave it in the landing net. Sometimes 10 seconds, 20 seconds, that's all you need to do. Let it recover, and then it starts to swim out of the landing net. As soon as it starts to do that, drop the rim of the landing net in the water and let the fish swim out. Perfect release. Oh, he's refused it. If it's there too long, any dry fly, the fish has got far too long to examine it and to inspect it, and quite often they refuse it. And that was a classic case of a refusal. It came up, it nudged it, but it knew it wasn't right. So this sort of lake appears easy because it's managed and it's stocked, but a lot of the fish are overwintered. The quality of the stockfish is fantastic in here as well. And as you can see by these rising trout, they're feeding on natural food. And when fish feed properly on natural food, they're never quite as easy to catch as people think. So you need a bit of stealth, you need a bit of watercraft, and you'll end up using either little dry flies to catch these fish, or little buzzers and little nymphs, just throwing out great big gaudy lures and pulling them back. After a few days, stops working. So you need to have a few more strings to your bow. And I think, as somebody who fishes for a living and fishes every day, this is fantastic to actually come back to your accommodation at night and be able to have a few hours on here, especially if it's been a hard day on the locks or a hard day on the river. Perfect. I've decided to use Cdc Fly. It's a fly with a bunch of Cdc feathers which keeps it very buoyant, and you've got this plume of Cdc feathers that stick out the water so you can see it easily. Oh, and so can the fish. And the great thing about it, when olives come off, they've got lovely up wings, so they're very reminiscent of a sailboat with its sail sticking up in the air, and so you can see them being blown across the lake here. So you put on a Cdc Fly, you've got this lovely post of feathers and also the buoyancy with the Cdc, and that keeps them up, and as you can see, the fish absolutely love them. On a water like this, a long-handled landing net is a really good idea. Oh, cast it out. There, got him. Whoa, what a great take that was. That was more like it. Don't you just love dry fly fishing?
Very, very powerful fish.